Hi, welcome to Pretty Blunt. I am your host, Jamie Lipowitz. I am joined by my partner in crime, Sabine Schwartz. Sabine, what's up? What's the hot gossip this week?
So clear bags are dropping, clear packages are dropping, but after seeing some of the first and initial feedback, I don't think samples are going to matter as much.
Interesting. Why?
We're hearing from the buds and seeing from the buds that literally they're like, "Oh, I would buy that now." It's immediately converting their quality perceptions without again, you don't need to show them what's in the bag. You don't need to actually prove it with a purchase in the same way.
Yeah, you know what a tomato looks like. So when you have the clear box of tomatoes with all the little things, as long as they're not moldy, you know what it looks like. It's kind of the same. I mean, it's not the same thing, but it's kind of the same thing.
Kind of the same thing, but it just is, I think, going to be so interesting because I think if samples matter less in some ways, if your flower can sell better without you physically having to share an experience with someone just because it can visually be perceived as quality or good or a representation that the customer is happy to pay for, I think it actually changes a lot of things for smaller brands and even just how the budtenders talk about your product in store and their interest level in who your brand is.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, if you can see it, you kind of know what it looks like. I mean, you do know what it looks like, but you can see if it's frosty. You can kind of see when things look dry or if they look more moist and dense. Like when you can see the crystals, those are quality signifiers that you don't then necessarily need to try it to know what it is. That's really interesting. We actually had Cora from Pure Sun Farms on a PK the other week, and I loved when she opened up the bag blind to prove the quality. It was I don't need to cherry pick and feel a bag. Here you go, open this up. This is what you're getting. I think that was a huge moment of trust building for the budtenders. And I think by having the clear screens, the budtenders can see what the product looks like, which is half the battle. And then it becomes much easier to recommend it or sell it because you can actually see the product.
Well, and I also think it'll help kind of justify prices or justify paying $5 more for something. You can clearly bring out two SKUs that one might have a window, one might not. And that's going to give you a very clear difference. If they're $5 difference, I'm probably going to buy the one with the window because I can just see what I'm buying, to be honest. But also, I think if it's two windows that you're comparing, same. It just gives you a whole new experience in how you talk about brands and flower with your customers in store. It's more similar to bulk buying that I think everybody always wants, but the bulk buying has its own issues. But yeah.
Well, I think it's the best of both worlds in the bulk buying. You get to see the product. It's not picked fresh, but that is a operational challenge that gets avoided.
I picked fresh, but I was talking about this with, I don't remember, somebody the other day. The bulk buying is actually gross. It was gross, guys. It was gross. We were all opening those containers and just standing in line and coughing and sneezing everywhere. And now I'm not converted to a bulk buy anymore. I think the clear windows are a lot of that solution.
Yeah, because they're already prepackaged, so you can just hand things over. And I would actually probably venture to guess that the clear windows are going to make the product much fresher than bulk buy because it gets harvested, put into the bag, right? Bovita
Right.
pack in, sealed, and then it's sealed tight from all air sources until a consumer buys it. Versus when you're transporting bulk product that is not packaged, you're doing the packaging on site at the dispensary.
But I think it is better. And I think it's going to just change a lot of the conversations around price points of flour, truly. I think we're going to see those slight increases from value for those customers that now can perceivably understand why they would spend their money more. And so I think it's going to change the price floor. I think it's going to change the price floor a little bit for flour alone.
Yeah, sure. You can get your 3.5 grams for, $20 or whatever. But for 35, look at the difference, There's levels to everything.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting. And I think it's going to push brands to have their SOPs be tighter.
I love this. This is a good step forward for the industry.
It's a good step. And I'm very interested to see how consumers keep interacting with it because so far the immediate reception has been really, really great. And I'm super excited to see how these all sell.
I want to go back to what you originally said, though, was that you think that it's going to lessen the need for budtenders to sample whole flower. I think that's interesting. Because everybody in this industry seems to think that sampling solves all the problems.
Always. And in this instance, I see it appearing in two different ways. One, yes, you always have to make a bet when you're bringing in a new SKU. Absolutely. But historically, when you got 6 ounces or 9 ounces a case, you had to sell them to get the feedback from the customers on whether or not it was good for you to be able to buy a new one. This time, you can actually immediately open it and you're like, oh, I can see there's 2 of these bags that are really janky. I'm going to immediately ask for a replacement and flag it with the wholesaler. And like, I just actually think it's going to make those risks easier for the stores as well. And then like these new small people that show up, it's easier to take a risk on them because you can kind of immediately make that call.
Yeah, you can see the quality signifier.
Yeah, immediately without waiting for your customer to have to buy it and for you to have to train your team member on it. And like training's obviously important, but you can immediately say, this is a good quality flower that I'm happy to sell in my location.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think for the brands that don't have the best quality, like this is not great for them and really forces them to double down on their education and brand opportunities. Because if there's something that's clearly better quality on the market and maybe it's a little bit more expensive or the same or line price, like, you know, often the pricing is not a quality signifier. It's going to be even harder for those brands to win that budtender mind share to get that recommendation. And so they're really going to be forced to deliver better marketing assets and better trade assets so that budtenders can recommend if the product quality is clearly not as good as a competitor.
100%. And I think like, I do have a like, well, maybe Jamie, I'll ask you, do you think that every brand needs a clear window? Or are there some exceptions?
I mean, I think every brand should have a clear window. If we're talking about an agriculture product, right? The likelihood of me buying, like even the bag of apples comes in a clear bag. You know what I mean? You go to the farmer's market, like it is an agriculture product. Do I think pre-rolls need a clear window? No. Do I think a vape needs a clear window? No. But do I think the likelihood of success is better in whole flower with a clear window? Yeah, I do.
Interesting. I was going to argue with you. And yeah, because my initial gut instinct was not all brands need a clear window because like you know this. I say this all the time. I buy a lot of like mainstream and lower than mainstream quality weed because we just smoke a lot and that's just like who we are. So it's fine. I like good weed too, but we also buy a lot of what other people would say is low quality weed. And I would argue that like sometimes with that, like I actually don't care. Like I know what I'm getting when I'm buying the $80 ounce. Like I know what I'm getting and I don't care what it looks like. But then hearing you say that, you're totally right because there is a very there you see a difference still between the value bag of apples and the really beautiful 6-pack that's like put together or like the tomatoes that are just like chilling in the thing versus the ones that are like cupped and scooped. And so like I actually now hearing you say that I'm like you're right, it is just straight up agriculture. You could always see it no matter what. Like it wouldn't matter. Everyone could gain something from that.
I mean, if you don't want people to see your product before they buy it, I don't know that that's a great sign for your brand.
It's interesting. That's like truly that is just like a philosophical like yeah. That's an
like
aha
if
for
everyone
some people.
else is doing it, why aren't you? What are you trying to hide? Because
Yeah.
it's not a finished good.
No.
A finished good, I understand, comes in a package. You know, my mascara comes in a tube that comes in another packaging around it, right? Theoretically, I could open up the package and look at the tube, but I don't because I know what's in there. A vape is a vape. If I've bought the vape before, I'm rebuying it. I know what to expect. I've bought other vapes before. I know what to expect. Maybe I'd want to see if the oil is darker or not, like to see if the oil has aged, you know, but again, that's a product quality signifier, you know, certain things I don't think you need to, certain things I think you do. And I think the market will tell us, you know what I mean? Like the market will always tell you what they want and what they don't. I think they're going to like the windowed bags. I think that's going to inevitably become an industry standard for brands to have windowed bags because, you know, the customer is going to demand it. They're going to demand seeing these products. And inevitably, what I think won't matter because the market will tell us what it wants.
Percent. The market will always tell us. It's interesting because you saying mascara made me think, actually, maybe I do want to vape with a clear window. Not like a clear window, but what we hear from the Budtenders all the time is that people often don't remember the brand or the name of something. They do, yes, but often they don't. Often they're just like, it was the one that had the orange top, or
Right.
it was the one that had a circle tip. And so I actually think that that is kind of interesting, that we're almost just like so stupid. Everyone always, like, I feel like it thinks it's hilarious that all we do is make makeup references, but no one is going to tell me that that Great Lash mascara tube from Maybelline that is green and pink and black. So, but you can see it immediately in the store. I could tell my brother to go in and buy me that mascara because I could be like, oh, it's the one in the green and pink tube. Like, he wouldn't even need to know the name.
Also comes with time. Like you've been conditioned to that mascara being like an iconic product for the last 30 years, you know? But what's iconic now? I kind of think the Pure Sun Farms pink bags are iconic.
Absolutely.
You know, I think brands are beginning to come up. You know, the little Super Toast Yellow, iconic, but only in this industry. When is it going to be mainstream? That's the question.
Any questions, Jamie?
Many questions. I think you have some more for me, though.
I do. And obviously, like, there's so many things. Something came up that was interesting on the session show that I hadn't necessarily considered. And I was like, oh, right, duh. There's 5 square feet in every store. So that every customer listens to the person in front of them place their order.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I was like, duh. And then when Justin was explaining it, I was like, right, like, you're just listening. You can't avoid it. But like, Justin's work of him explaining something to one person actually explains something to anybody in that store if they're listening. And he has people come up to him and be like, what were you talking with that person about? Like, what was that? Especially when he's explaining more like complex categories or nuanced products that are a little bit more like niche. He says it often happens that the person that comes afterwards will be like, what was that?
Well, there's a few things that I think about that. And I think the budtender has to sort of assume that other people are listening and in essence has to sell to the store because they're the influencer at the bottom of the funnel and they influence the things that people buy. And often people don't know what they want until they've been told it and sold it, right? Like they don't know that they want it until they understand how it's going to help them or how it might solve a problem of theirs. So like, you might go into a dispensary and you're like, I'm looking for help with sleep, as an example. And then you overhear, you're waiting in line and you overhear a budtender talking about the benefits of CBN and like, you know, CBN rich products. Well, I'm interested in that because I'm looking for help with sleep. So I think it's fair to assume that anyone is free game to influence in a dispensary, but it's also human nature. Humans want to pack up and like me too everything. They want to do what everyone else is doing. So if the person in front of them wants that, what's not to say that they don't want that? Because it you know, piqued their curiosity and sparked curiosity. And then the other thing is people don't ask questions about things that they're not interested in. If they overheard something and it piqued interest, you know, it sparked joy, but they're going to ask the budtender about it.
And when that's exactly it is, it was literally like an aha where I get reminded every day that we are moving closer and closer into a traditional brick and mortar retail experience. In many ways, because I was like, right, that is just what happens everywhere. Like I'm overhearing the nail girl beside me getting a different type of gel polish. And I'm like, what is that? And what it really showcased to me is it showcased, yes, duh, this is how common industries work, but it showcased to me an opportunity where the budtenders like Justin that are like putting in that work and like actually having that really effective conversation are putting in the work for more than just the one person they're interacting with. You know, it really does spread. And so having budtenders in your store who care about that experience and like who want to go the extra mile, like it truly does just like rapidly expand out within your community.
Yeah, budtenders are the ultimate influencers in more ways than just one, right? They are the only way that humans talk to other humans and sell them cannabis, unless it's a drug dealer and it's illicit market, right? So the budtender is the influencer. And their influence spreads around what they think is valuable or cool. We hear a lot about those mod drops where a budtender completely influences somebody to buy those or add them on. To me, that is the perfect upsell or add on to any basket. You're coming in, Doesn't matter if you're coming in for a pack of pre-rolls, an eighth of flour, like anything. Those mod drops are the easiest thing to add on to any customer, but customers don't know that they want them because they don't know that they exist. So it's up to the budtender to influence them, educate them, and get them sold.
So the other piece of hot gossip in alignment with mod drops is I think we're really seeing alternative consumption methods increase. And we are seeing it. I think when drinks first launched, they were less than 1% of the market. But we are hearing from the budtenders actively is that they are selling drinks. It's not just wellness people. It's not just people who are sober.
Well, the demand is higher in 2025 than it was in 2024. That's what anecdotally, that's what the budtenders are telling us.
But why, Jamie? What do you think it is?
I mean, I think it's Rome wasn't built in a day, and it's the normalization of this industry. I think things go and ebb and flow in cycles, and it takes time to adopt things. And, maybe somebody loved drinks last year and introduced one to their friend. And now we're in, patio drink season, and the friend's going to a party and remembers that they had a drink last year, Like, it takes time to bring something that didn't exist as a brand new innovation and introduce it to the market. And sometimes it's just not the right time for it. All-in-ones, when the industry first started, everyone was about that all-in-one life. They all flopped. 510 was the hot girl at the party. And now what? Everyone wants an all-in-one. There's many reasons why that shift has happened, lots of market dynamics, technology, lots of reasons why the shift has happened. But the market did not accept all-in-ones initially, and now they clearly do 4, 5, 6 years later, whatever it's been. I think beverages are no different. Beverages are a consumption habit that we're used to socially. So I think they're easy to adopt in that way. But a cannabis beverage needs to be normalized. It needs to be introduced. It needs to be thought of. It's not something I'm used to buying. I'm used to buying, a bottle of wine for the weekend or whatever. I have that habit. I don't necessarily have the habit of thinking about a cannabis beverage and going and buying it for whatever the occasion is. So it takes time to get the market there, get people excited, get them to try it, get them to bring it places, get them to come back. So it's all these things that need to shift. And then the other thing I think is distribution. I think having cannabis beverages only sold in dispensaries and cannabis retail shops doesn't give it a wide enough scale for distribution for it to be normalized in the way that I think it needs to be. But I'm bullish on drinks. I think drinks are the future. I do.
I think what you're saying there is it's about training the customer. And we had less options at the beginning. A lot of stores 6 years ago didn't have a fridge. So yes, there's the normal changes. But I think if I was going to say that literally this summer, on top of it being pre-roll summer, but this is the opportunity right now for budtenders to build that habit with their consumers. One of the buds said to me that they've been framing it almost like day drinking. And it's been selling really well. And it's like, oh, the fridge is right there. It's hot outside. You can be like, actually, have you ever thought about a cannabis drink soda to go? It is actually just this immediate thing that you can have this conversation in the moment, truly just because it's summer.
And I mean, you can bring a drink anywhere. So it goes back to the qualifying questions. If you ask somebody when they're coming in, what brings you in today? Or what are you up to later? Or, where do you want to consume, or any of these sort of lead in selling sentences. Well, if somebody says to you, I need some pre-rolls, I'm going to hang out on a boat. Well, have you thought about cannabis beverages? A beverage is amazing on a boat, on a dock, all kinds of places, by the fire. You have to be able to paint the situation and paint the picture for them of where they're going to consume it and how they're going to. Because they're thinking to themselves, oh, well, cannabis is acceptable and normal on a boat. I'm going to smoke a joint on my boat later. Well, why wouldn't you drink a drink? Often, maybe they just don't know it's an option.
This is our prime time, truly, to just continue to dive deep on it and just upsell everyone on drink. Have you ever tried a cannabis drink? It's hot outside. It is a weirdly normal conversation to have now, and I think we'll be able to make it more normal.
I feel like, I'm from Toronto. Drinking in the park is a rite of passage. So it's not, maybe it's I'm not drinking a beer in the park and now I'm switching over to a cannabis beverage. But it takes some time to normalize, to get thinking about it, to remember that it exists, you know? But if you build it, they will come. Well, I think that about wraps us up for this week's episode of Pretty Blunt. Thank you so much, Sabine.
Thanks so much, Jamie.
Happy summer.